Hi, I wanted to go through the process that I go through when I'm really, really roughly sort of sketching out uh, a world building environment. And I'm going to show you how I do that in Gravity Sketch. And I don't have a design completely in mind. I'm just going to just free form it so you can see the steps I go through to do a 3D sketch. Basically, I'm doing a rough thumbnail drawing inside a 3D space that eventually will be replaced with a much tighter drawing and or model. And the absolute first place to start when you're building something is that everything is in relation to the size of a human being. So if I've done this right, I've imported this placeholder avatar. I'm going to take out a measuring tool just to make sure. This cube should be 2 meters tall. Oops. Let's try that. So basically, yep. Um, 200 centimeters, so 2 meters tall. So that's great. That's what I want. And the reason why that's important, if I bring out a plane here, oops, that's the wrong tool. Boop, turn that off. Okay, there we go. So I put a floor down. We just bring that so her feet aren't sticking in it. Okay, so if I take my two handsets and I sort of accordion them out till I get to 100%, 50, 75, whoops, they're 100%, and then I bring out a tool for walking, I should be roughly about eye height to this placeholder avatar, which is what I want. If I start sketching without this relationship, then it's really hard for me to come back later and figure out the scale of things in relationship, even though I might have a placeholder. This way, I know that as I'm sketching, I could jump into the model anytime and see what the design is looking like from the size of myself, which is great. Okay, so I've got the grid on. I'm going to turn that off. I'm also going to turn off the world axis since I know she's sort of starting there. And I'm going to first start with just black. Can choose a different color, black, and I'm going to choose the sketching ink tool that lets me do sketches like this. I'm going to make the pen nib a little bit bigger, like that. And just because I don't want this to be a super over complex polywise, I'm going to go into the ink tool and I'm going to turn it to, let's see, the diamond stroke, and I'm going to turn it to low poly. That means that my sketches are lower poly. There's still a lot of polys in there, but it's fairly low poly. And I'm going to do sort of an Alice in Wonderland scene and a guilty pleasure because I think I've always been sort of haunted with the opportunity or the challenge of creating something that would be like how I imagined it would be like to drop into Wonderland. So I'm going to start with just the hole that she falls in. Maybe that's a little big. Do you want to make my nib a little bigger? I'm going to just start roughing out. This is just the plot of land that it's going to sit on. It can get bigger later. And I know she's sitting under a tree where she's daydreaming. So I'm going to just start sketching out a tree. And I can see this in 3D, so I can start to get an idea of the tree, but I'm not really worried about the finer aspects of the design. I'm going to come in and figure all that stuff out later. So let's bring in the tree. Let's say there's back of a tree and roots. It's kind of an area where she would sit and read and daydream. Okay, and let's say there's just kind of, no, that's too high, sort of knolls that surround it. I'm going to bring the hole down a little bit and just going to be sort of a lip around the hole, the rabbit hole that she's going to drop down. And I'm really just treating this just like if I was sketching in my sketchbook. Okay, so that's about right. I can see if I go in about this height, I'm going to go back to 100%. There I am, 100%. This gives me an idea of how big everything is. And there's the hole. I could easily fall down that hole if I wanted to. So next I want to sketch out what happens when she drops down the hole. So make my nib a little bit bigger. And I'm going to just create that hole. She falls down. She feels like she falls forever. I'm not going to make mine forever. These lines are just sort of indicating the edges of the hole. So if I go down here and look down it, that's pretty far. Just sort of give me some delineation of the edges of the hole. I'm going to replace this with geometry later, but this is going to help me. And at any point, I can grab any of these lines and pull them around, or I can actually even edit them, grab them, and readjust their size. But at the moment, just in my sketch, that's acceptable. That's fine. So then she's going to land somewhere. So I'm going to put a plot right here where she lands at the bottom of the hole. And then in the story, she finds herself underground where she starts to sort of follow the white rabbit and into these corridors. I'm going to sort of draw some corridors that go off. And I've always thought of this area as being kind of like a hobbit hole. You know, it's a combination of Victorian grandeur and rabbit warren. So I'm going to have a couple of options for places that she could go. And then let's say the walls are going to be like this high. This is just to get a feel. I'm going to grab a copy of this placeholder person to get an idea of what these are starting to look like. And these are really loose. I'm not doing anything precise whatsoever. And then I'm going to have them eventually end up in a larger room. And that's going to be where the table is with the key on it. Let's say that that's going to be a much taller room. So this is kind of the entry to that room. More hallway corridors. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to do another one of those. Let me grab another one of her and just copy her here so I get an idea of how big this space is. That's big. And let's give it kind of a domed ceiling that kind of goes up into the shadows. So I've got my Oxford up here, daydreaming, fall down the rabbit hole, find yourself in a rabbit warren, literally, and then make your way to the hall that has the little table. So let's put that's a little teeny bit big. I'm just gonna put a placeholder for the table. And on the table, a little box. It says eat me. And the box is actually on the floor, small down here. And there's a bottle here that says drink me. So that's that. And let's see. I know I'm going to have doors along the corridor, so let me just do a simple doorway. And I'm not being precise at all. This is all scribbly placeholder stuff. Little door handle. And then I can grab this and then I can press this purple button here and it basically saves it as one single object. Let's see. So that door's about people's height, but I want a little bit more like anthropomorphic rabbit height. So I can place one there, and then I can just duplicate it a couple of times throughout the corridor. That may be a lot of doors, but okay, so that's that. It's a little bit of I want the ceiling to be kind of undulating because although it's going to have wainscoting and Victorian-y decorations, I want the ceiling to feel more like a rabbit hole. Okay, so I've got that rough. Now let's see. She's going to fall down the rabbit hole, so I want to have there be roots. So I'm going to make my drawing tool bigger and just so create some roots. Grab this one and make this a little fatter. There we go. Okay. A couple of smaller roots. Little. Okay, and then I can grab this and I can group it. So now I have a root that I can replicate. So let's get some of those in there. So as she's falling, the roots are sort of pointing down. And they're all the same root, but I can change that up later. Maybe there's even a root right toward the top that's coming from the tree she was sitting under. Okie doke. So as you can see really fast, I'm starting to get an idea of how this space is working. My drawing tool smaller, and I'm going to just sort of indicate like wainscoting. Wainscoting is that sort of trim that's along the walls. Usually there to protect the walls from furniture bumping into it. Make this a little smaller. For now, I'll just do this corridor. Now, my theme park ride design brain wants me to have there be one path. But my VR environment brain kind of wants you to find your own path. So giving these two options allows you to sort of map your own adventure. But like a theme park ride, eventually you get to the place I want you to get to. Oh, look, I said I wasn't going to do this, and now I'm doing it. And probably what I'll do as I start designing in here, there'll be something special about this path that's different from this path. And then let's say I want to create some sort of light fixtures that are hanging from the ceilings. This is really messy. Boop. I'm going to select it and group it. And those are going to hang. Let's put some over here, over here. And I know I'll be coming in here and adding carpets and furniture and stuff. Let me get rid of that guy. So let's see. So we have Alice starting up high in Oxford, daydreaming about whatever, and then we follow the white rabbit and jump down the hole, fall down the hole, fill the hole full of furniture and stuff, and then find ourselves down here in the corridor. So if I blow this up to 100%, you can see that I'm starting to get this feel for what it might be like to go down into this hole. And I can also look up and see way back up to the top and probably the sky. There's no way I'm going back that way, so I've got to go forward. And at any point, I could change out the sketch. erase things, grab whole sections of it, and just grab a whole section and delete it. But at the moment, for this purpose, this is fine. Let's say that I want to have some curtains that are sort of surrounding the doorway. So when you come in here, it acts kind of like an aperture or a veil you have to cross to make your way into this space. And I haven't pre-designed any of this. This is just on the fly. What's good is that even as rough as this is, it's starting to come together in my imagination as to what I'm capable of. And so there's going to be doors. Actually, I can use one of these doors for now. Make it a little bit bigger. This door is all the way around. And I know in the story that there is a curtain here. I don't know why it's going to be here. I'll figure that out later. And that's where the little teeny door is going to be hiding. So let me grab one of these doors, shrink it way down, whoop, and then print it there. So there's a door under there. And maybe up in here, there's swags of fabric. And maybe there's some just incredible chandelier that's hanging here. See how incredible this chandelier is? Okay, so that's the rough sketch. And I think that's enough information at the moment for me to start to add sort of flesh to these bones. But because I know this is really rough and something that I don't necessarily want to keep around for the finished product, I'm going to put this all on its own layer. It's actually on a layer now, so that layer's just got no name on it. If I take the slider, you can see everything is on the same layer, and I'm going to change the name of the layer to rough. So that's the rough. And so I can lock that or turn it off. I'm going to make a new layer. It doesn't matter if it's above or below. And I'm going to call that, let's see, how about walls? No, it's going to have a floor in it too. So how about mesh, just because I'm not being very imaginative. Okay, so now I'm going to lock the rough so I don't accidentally grab anything and mess with it. And now I'm working on the mesh layer, and that's where I can start to add things to make it more solid based upon this rough sketch that I'm doing. So I'm going to first pick a color that's maybe not white, but kind of a light gray. I could change the color at any time. And then I'm going to go make sure that what I have chosen is the plane tool, which is right here. And I'm going to just come in here and bring a plane in. Let's start with the bottom of the hole here. And I'm going to come back in here and make it more organic. And then I'm going to use the subdivision tool, turn that off so that I can grab edges and extrude them. Whoops, there we go. So I'm grabbing this edge. I'm going to press the trigger and pull, and I can shrink it down, and I can start to lay out the floor of this rabbit warren. And I'm not worried too much about accuracy because I can always go back and clean it up. So let's bring it down here. And really all I'm doing is I'm taking that one plane that I brought in here, and by subdividing it, I am able to grab corners and extrude those corners. So you can see how fast I'm going to start to create a sense of place and destination, all of which will be editable later. I can grab any of these points and adjust them. And I'm not being super sacred to the underdrawing, but there's kind of a nuance that happens in the rough sketch that I kind of would like to retain. I think it's going to make it charming, just like sometimes you do a sketch in your sketchbook, and for some reason the sketch has more life than your finished illustration, and you want to kind of retain that life. And I think by doing this sketch in here, even though I didn't know what I was going to do exactly, there's a bit of energy that's inside this rough, scribbly drawing that I'm going to retain somehow. And that's why I am following the rough drawing in the placement of these floor planes. Okay, let me just adding a little bit more detail to the bottom of the hole. Not too much, because I want to be able to come in and do the walls as well. Okay, so that was fast. So let me see. I'm going to come back down in here, and I'm going to go to 100%. So I'm 100%. This is the size of me. I'm going to grab the teleportation tool, and now I can, because I have a surface, I can now walk around. So I'm looking up the hole, and I'm starting to explore these hallways. So these doors are small, but they kind of feel right. They feel like about the size I want. I can imagine a rabbit using these doors. I think for variety, I'll probably change the size so different animals use different doors. And as loose as this ground is, it feels kind of cool and right. It's how I imagine the goofiness of a hallway made by rabbits or other creatures. Okay, so let's see. Now that I've got that, let's continue with this room. So I'm going to go back into this plane that I created for the hallway, and I'm going to start extrude. Whoops, come on. Why are you not letting me? Oh, I see. There we go. And see, it's gonna, notice it clicks to, so if I do that, so I'm starting to make this room. Oops. There we go. I'm just snapping to these verts here. I'm going to add a little bit more complexity. Let's do that here too. Okay. Okay, now I've got all the floor done down here. It's explorable. And let's do the top plane up here. So I'm going to bring in a plane, a flat plane. Then I'm going to subdivide it, and then I'm going to just break this up. And then I'm going to grab this middle one, and I'm going to delete it. So now I've got this here for my hole. I'm just going to make it square at the moment. Like I said, I can come in and add complexity later if I want to. And I'm going to then turn on subdivision level to soften it out. So that sort of made that square hole more circular. And then I'm going to up the complexity, not that much, maybe like that, and but stick to low poly. So I've got, well, maybe I'll go back down. That's fine for now. I just don't want to get overly complex too early, or else the model will start to slow down as I try to work on it. Kind of give myself little bit of a slope. I'm just sort of covering up that line work that was there. So now I've got the place. Let's see, I'll go to 100%. 100%, there we go. Grab my teleportation tool, which is the moment looks like a banana. Here I am. Now I'm sitting up here. You can look down and see the path that's soon going to be hidden by the walls of the hole. And I can see the trees about the right size, and I'm still about the size of Alice there. Okay. So one last step, just for this rough part of the process, is I'm going to make the walls, at least half the walls of the hole. So I'm going to go into edit mode again. I'm going to just extrude up this time instead of down. Do the same here. And it's snapping to these verts here. Grab. I don't want to get too complex too early. That complexity can come later. I'm really massing it like a paper or foam core massing model to just make sure the volumes are all correct. I can add more complexity later. So there you're starting to see the hole. I'll do one more section of it so it feels a little bit more like a hole. Boom. Okay, there's the hole. And I can do the same here with the sides. So if I grab this, I can bring it, click it. Oh, that's interesting. It doesn't click. There it goes. That scared me there for a sec. So I'm going to click to this. Click to this. And there's not a lot of finesse in my sketch, so I'm kind of having to guess a little bit about. There we go. And I'm just feeling my way around. Because I can see everything in 3D, it's kind of intuitive what I'm doing here. Bring that out so you see the door a little bit. Coming around to this big room. I'll just follow the contours a little bit of my underdrawing. Pull these back so the doors show. Bring this up a little bit. Okay, so that's pretty great. And now I'm going to go back down here, back to 100%, 100%, 100%. Grab the teleportation banana, press it on the ground, and now I can sort of, now I'm looking up inside of this hole. And even while I'm here, I can take the layers window and grab the rough and make it disappear. So I'm just looking at the geometry, which I'll be doing as I add more geometry. But for now, and also I can make that geometry sort of pale and translucent, but at the moment I'm going to be following it. So, okay, so that's the first pass. That shows you just how quickly I can go from something really, really rough and start fleshing out what the space might be like. I'm sketching like I'm sketching in a sketchbook, but I am also starting to sketch with spaces. And because I have these avatars in there that are to scale, I'm always keeping in mind what the experience is going to be like going through it, because ultimately whatever this becomes is going to be something you can explore in VR. Or I could make a movie where the camera flies down here and then moves through the space. Once the model's done, it's up to me as to how I want to generate the content for it. So the next pass, I'm going to just do some more of this and start to show you how you can start to continually firm up the design as you go along. But I hope this was valuable to see just how fast this sketching process is. The Gravity Sketch can be used for something more than just industrial design and object making. You can also start to imagine how it would be used to build places, especially organic places like this that aren't necessarily dependent upon sort of rectilinear um, walls and flat floors. Also, I'll start talking about how things like these doors and these light fixtures, I might build somewhere else. I could build them in here, but I'd like to show that you can bounce around between the various tools to use whatever does the job for you, but then bring those pieces in here and start placing them, very much like previous videos where I talk about how you place objects into a scene that you've built outside in another program. So thanks for following along, and there's more to come.